Community Weatherization Coalition, and I'm here today to talk with you about your insulation. So insulation is a big deal when it comes to keeping you comfortable in your home, as well as saving you money and energy as the weather changes. Insulation is one of the most cost-effective ways to make your house more energy efficient because it works passively, meaning it works all the time. You don't have to turn it on or off, and it works whether you're in the house or not. The basic science of insulation is that it slows down the transfer of heat between spaces. So the higher R rating your insulation has, the harder it's going to be for heat to pass through it. You'll notice, especially here in Florida, that your attic is going to be really hot most of the year. So to keep that hot air in the attic and the cool air-conditioned air in your house, you're going to want to have a solid, even layer of quality insulation. To identify the type of insulation you have in your attic, here are some photos to help. They'll have different R values, and CWC's chart can help you compare your measurements to determine the R values. You're likely to find fiberglass bats or rolls, which often have a paper coating, loose fiberglass, which is blown in by a machine, or finally, you could find loose cellulose, a recycled product with insulating qualities that's also treated with pesticides. So let's take a look in my attic, and to do that, we're going to want to have a few things. A safe, sturdy step ladder. The taller the better for safety. If you have a shorter ladder, a selfie stick could also help give you some extra height and take some photos of the things that we're going to try and look at in there. You're also going to want a dust mask, goggles, and gloves. Let's go ahead and put those on before we get started. Once we're up there, a specific measurement can be taken with a ruler or a tape measure, but I can also show you a trick to take an estimate without having your measuring tool. Unless you have a light in your attic, which I happen to, a flashlight's going to be a good idea as well. Okay, so my attic hatch is in the hallway, which is pretty common. And if it's not there, you'll want to check your garage or maybe even a closet. I like to take and give a few taps on the hatch so that if any critters are nesting up there, I won't surprise them. Before we get too far, let's look at the hatch itself. I took some of CWC advice a while back and I added some weather stripping around the hatch to ensure that it fully seals. Many of these products are cheap and available at a local hardware store, and they're self-adhesive. So as long as you make sure that the surface you're putting it on is clean, you'll be able to just cut it to length and stick it. Luckily for me, someone has also installed some foam insulation board on the top of my hatch. This is great because our hot air is going to take the path of least resistance through the house. Most hatches are made out of thin plywood or drywall. Foam insulation can get glued right onto the hatch like you can see on mine. You can also cut it with a utility knife, and you can buy it in big sheets that are cut to fit. You can layer it also if you want a higher R value. What we'll have now is a clear view of the attic, and the first thing we'll need to do is identify our insulation type. As you can see, my attic has cellulose insulation, and it's loose. It's not pulled together, it's not tied in sheets, it's blown in with a machine. Other potential options are the batted fiberglass, like we saw at my office, and the loose fiberglass. The CWC has a handy chart. This chart will help you figure out how much insulation is recommended based on the type of insulation that you have. So using our chart, we'll need to measure how much insulation we have. A ruler or a tape measure will give you the most accurate reading. All you're going to do is slide it down all the way past your ceiling beam until you hit the actual ceiling. Use your tape measure to take note of the depth. Now, let's say you're using a selfie stick or you don't have your tape measure with you. You can estimate how much insulation you have using the size of your ceiling beam as the baseline. Most ceiling beams are either 2x4, which would be 3.5 inches high, or 2x6, which would be 5.5 inches high. Make an estimate and then compare that to the chart to estimate the R value of your attic insulation. If your average is less than R19, you're likely to see some pretty serious savings on your energy bill by adding more. If you have R19 or higher, however, the return on investment is going to drop significantly. So CWC primarily recommends the upgrade if your insulation is R19 or lower. In our next video, we'll talk a little bit more about what else you might encounter when looking in your attic, from pests to issues with your ductwork, and what can be done to correct some of those problems. Make sure you follow CWC on our social media accounts and tune into part 2 of our attic insulation series coming soon.